This is Beyond the Uniform with TJ Brassil.
Well, welcome into the season finale of Beyond the Uniform. I'm TJ Brassil, and I'm lucky to be joined today by Marybeth Price. Marybeth, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud that I got the price down because up until recently it was Marybeth Sant, but you recently got married, so congratulations.
You?
We'll talk more about that later, that's for sure. But first off, so you just finished up not too long ago the indoor season. You were on the world circuit, and then you were finaled in the 60 at USA Indoors. So in your eyes, how did your indoor season go?
I think that it was very consistent. I'm pretty hard on myself, so I know what I'm capable of. But getting married and having some off time I missed some training and we were honeymooning, so a lot was going on. But I think that I repped myself well, and I think I competed every race, and I was top four every single race in Europe, and then made the final at USA. So I think it went pretty well. It was solid.
And now, obviously, with COVID-19 happening and the Olympics getting pushed back, you have some more time until the trials in the Olympics. But now I would think you kind of start to shift your focus towards training for the trials in the Olympics. So where do you go from here to start training and looking towards that?
Yeah, so it's just been kind of tough because it's been up in the air for so long, and I know that every other athlete is experiencing this, but for now I'm just ready to focus on 2021, and I think that it is a blessing in disguise, and it gives me more time to get into my training, get into my cycle, and so I'm okay with it.
Good. And so now growing up, you've always kind of been a track star for sure. But growing up, you were also a soccer star as well.
Yeah.
So what was it that led you to decide to choose track over being the next soccer star?
So I actually originally chose soccer. I loved soccer. I had been doing track for probably a couple years before I had to make the decision, and I just loved soccer. I've been doing it since I was little, but I really had to take a step back. My dad kind of had a conversation with me, and he was like, you can play collegiate soccer, but you can go really, really far in track. You have a raw talent, you have something special. And so at a young age, I kind of had to make a decision like that, and I went with track, and I'm glad I did.
Well, it seems to have worked out so far, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But so as I said, you've always kind of been a star in track. In high school, you were a two-time state champ, state record holder. You were kind of the star of Colorado, and then you decided to go and run track at Oregon. What led you to decide to go and run for the Ducks?
So it's Tracktown USA. I actually was not going to go on a visit. I had my mind made up, and I was going to go to TCU. But a visit kind of just dropped into my lap. I was talking to the head coach there, and so I was like, all right, I'll go. I'll go to Eugene. I'll see what it's like. And on the plane ride coming home from the visit, I looked at my dad, and I was like, I think this is where I'm going to go. And it was just kind of just where I felt my talents and my dreams and everything would get to the next level.
Had you already told the TCU coaches that you were coming at that point, or was that just internally you had decided that?
I had not told them, so that's good. It was more internal decision. So yeah, that was good.
That's good. That's good. And your career started off amazing. You were fifth at the Pac-12 championships your freshman year, and then you kind of started hitting the injury bug, and your career just kind of started getting plagued by injuries up to the point where you ended up stopping track and field altogether. What led to that decision for you to decide to step away from track?
So I was constantly getting hurt. I had stress fractures, and I was just constantly in pain. And near the end of my freshman year, I actually ran on a broken foot and then took some time off. And then sophomore year and junior year, I was just always in pain. And finally, I decided to get the doctor at Oregon actually suggested that I get a bone density scan. And so I did, and I got blood work done, and it came back that I had osteopenia, which is like weak bones, which is really uncommon in a sprinter, but also someone of my age at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so he advised that I medically retire. So on that end of it, I just kind of listened, but I was also like mentally out of track. Like there's just so much going on. And so I finally was just like, all right, I'll listen to the doctor. And that's what led to it.
How hard was that to step away from the sport that you had been a part of your life for so long?
It was extremely difficult. I mean, it was all I knew. And to go from constantly running or training and competing to absolutely nothing was really, really hard.
And you say that mentally you were kind of already checked out. You had a lot of other stuff going on as well. What do you mean by that?
Just kind of personal life going on, and I wasn't surrounded by the best people. I was in a bad relationship. I just altogether was out of really my normal life, and everything just kind of felt like it was falling apart.
And so then in 2016, as you say, you kind of felt like everything was falling apart. You just left Oregon altogether. What led to you deciding to just leave the university?
So finally I kind of pushed my family away and kind of pushed my parents away during that time. And finally my dad, he had a real conversation with me and my mom. My dad sat me down and they're like, we think you need to come home. And so I kind of had to look myself in the mirror and like realize everything that was going on and where I was in my life, physically, mentally, all of the above, who, I was surrounding myself with and being away from my family. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So I just didn't really tell many people, packed everything up and left.
Why did you decide that it was the best way to go was not to tell anyone and just leave?
I had obviously made strong friendships there, so that was really hard. But really, I wanted to know that I made the decision for myself. I didn't want any like outside opinions to come into the decision, and I knew that it would be hard to leave, and so I just kind of was like, you got to do this, and if you're going to make the decision to do this, you got to stick to it.
And so you've opened up kind of a lot about this you've started a blog recently. And for anyone that's interested, it's on the screen right here. But if you're listening as well, it is marybeth1.webnode, webnode.com / I believe we decided it was a slash, not a backslash. But you opened up about part of that decision was also you were involved in a very abusive relationship. What happened, and had you talked to anyone about that in that situation? Had you reached out for help?
No, I was completely living that on my own, which, looking at it hindsight and now, I should have reached out to people, but I think that in order to have understood and really gotten out of it and learned from it, I needed to do it on my own. So I didn't tell anyone.
Had anyone, if anyone had tried to help you, do you think you would have let them help you?
Yes and no. I think that, when you're in that situation, it's a manipulative situation, and I'm also a very stubborn person. And so I truly believe that going through something like that, you are your own. You're on your own, and you're the one that's going to get you out of it. And afterwards, I think is when I needed my people the most, my family, my friends, and everyone. But during, I'm not sure that much would have changed if people would have talked to me, and you know, some did, like my closest friends definitely knew something was going on, saw, you know, in my face and everything, and my who I was and my everyday. But I never really opened up, and I think that was part of just getting through it.
And just to clarify, when you say abusive relationship, you mean this physically, emotionally, mentally, all of the above?
All of the above.
All of the above. All right. And so another thing that I read in your blog and really stuck out to me is you said that at the time you felt that you deserved what was happening to you and you were questioning your worth, but you were the victim in this situation. So why were you blaming yourself?
Um, I to this day have a hard time blaming myself, and I still do a little bit. I think just because I allowed it to go on for so long, and because I pushed the people, you know, away in my life, and when you're constantly around somebody bringing you down, physically, mentally, just everything, you start to normalize it, and you start to think that you're doing something to make that happen to you. And so I thought that I deserved it. I thought that, you know, I thought it was my fault. And, you know, I knew during it, and I knew even stepping outside of it and moving home and being with my family, I knew it was wrong. And I knew it wasn't really normal and it wasn't right, but it's just a very manipulative situation. So, yeah.
And when you finally kind of started to realize that this wasn't a good situation, this was a situation you needed to get out of, what was the hardest part in admitting to yourself that this was a bad situation you need to remove yourself from?
I think the hardest part was accepting how toxic it was, accepting what was actually happening to me. Because nobody deserves to go through that. And I think that was like a daunting thing to just accept, wow, like this is real, this is happening. And it was scary to accept. And I knew it was going to break the people who cared about me. I knew it was going to break their hearts. So all around, it was just the people around me who loved me and myself. It was hard to accept because it's a very toxic situation.
When you hear people talk about instances like that, when they've like this, where they've been in abusive relationships, you'll hear people say that they really struggled to pull themselves out. Like they didn't get out early enough, like you were saying, and they found it hard to get out of that situation. Why do you think it's so hard to remove yourself from a situation, even if you know it's bad for you?
Um, I think that it's hard to remove yourself once it becomes normal and once you're in so deep. And even in the beginning, like I said, accepting it was the hardest thing. And so you constantly want to minimize or downplay it in a way. And I think that the reason it's so hard is because you really do start to believe your worth is nothing. You're going through this every day. You're going through constant like mental abuse, physical abuse. You're being downgraded as a person, as a human being, and you accept that, and so you don't think you deserve anything more. You don't think you deserve happiness. You don't think that you can do better because you're that low in yourself. And so I think that's the hardest part is people just start to believe that what the other person is doing and saying to them is fact and it's real. And that was the hardest part coming out of it was if I didn't just say, okay, I'm leaving and just pack up and make that decision right away, I don't know where I would be. And once I did, the hardest part was just like I had to figure out why I let it happen for so long. I had to figure out why I didn't stay. And I think that is a big part of it. It's just you believe that you are those things.
And another thing you spoke to in your blog was you said that even when you pulled yourself out of the situation, you went home, it was still kind of there. Like you still were letting him text you and you weren't fully out of that situation. When was the moment that you kind of hit that rock bottom and just cut the situation off and knew that this had to be done?
Yeah. Like I said in my blog, I remember exactly the quote. It was like, even miles apart, I allowed, this person to be in my life. And it was, when you have been a part of manipulation for years, it's hard to get away from. It's hard to, still not be manipulated even miles away. And there was a point where I was just laying on the bathroom floor. My mom was cooking in the kitchen, and I was like sobbing, and she came in and she was like, like, why? What's going on? And then I think that was the turning point. I was like, this is enough. Like I saw how I was hurting myself and the people around me.
How hard was that climb back out to reach the light of where you are at now?
Um, one of the hardest climbs, the hardest climb I've ever had to endure. I think, honestly, and this might sound crazy, I think harder than when I was going through it and harder than when I was in the situation was coming out of it. Forgiving myself, forgiving that person for, for everything. Accepting all of it, accepting what actually went on and talking about it and reliving the trauma or, things like that. And to this day, I'll still have some memories that I suppressed, and I'll be like, oh, and I'll relive the trauma. So it's like somebody who's been through a traumatic experience in their life, whatever it may be, I think constantly lives that battle, constantly fights it, but also constantly grows and gets better each day.
How did you finally start to pull yourself out of that?
So I started track again. The CSU coach was like, hey, yeah, like I know you've been out for almost 3 years, but I know you have talent and we want you. And so honestly, just getting back into doing what I love, being around my family. They are my village. And then I met my now husband, and it was like meeting him, he just loved me for everything. He loved me for who I was, what I had been through, everything. And I saw myself again through him.
So you mentioned, well, the first thing you mentioned was when you transferred to Colorado State and you started running again. And obviously that has worked out quite well as you set school records, you went to NCAAs. What was it about that kind of revitalized that love for track for you?
Um, the first year was a rust buster for sure. I was not, where I knew I should be. But I just kept going because I loved being back. I loved the grind. I loved putting everything I had into training and the track, and then being able to compete. Like, it strengthened me mentally, it strengthened me physically, all the above. And then after the first year back, summer happened, kind of just relaxed a little bit, took some time off, and then it was like I wanted even more. And that year I just flourished. I PR'd, I set records, I made NCAAs, and it was just getting back into it, getting back into putting your heart into something, and then it giving that back to you.
And then you also mentioned meeting your now husband, Hunter. So what role did he play in your comeback? And by comeback, I mean that both on and off the track.
Like I said, I'm a really stubborn person, so I don't want to say all of it, but a lot. He, most of it.
How so?
He believed in me. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He kept pushing me during bad training days. He kept telling me he believed in me. He showed me the love that my dad shows my mom, the love that, I've always wanted and deserved. He just, I honestly have no words for him. He was my best friend. He just came into my life at the perfect moment and showed me what I deserve, who I am. And yeah, just when I feel like when you are a happy person off the track and when you surround yourself with people who love you and you realize your worth and you realize who you are deep down, it shows on the track. So yeah, he helped a lot in the comeback, both off the track and on the track.
And you talked about surrounding yourself with people like him and your family and stuff. How important is that support system when you're not only making this comeback on the track, but coming back from everything that you did?
You absolutely cannot do it without them. You can't go through this life alone. And, I pushed my family and my village away for so long when I was at my lowest and when, someone was dragging me down, and coming out of it and getting to where I am today would not have been possible without those people, my family, my village, my just comfort.
And then, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, and we've talked about you recently got married. So I have to ask, like, how's the newlywed life going?
It's so good. Honestly, not much has changed. Like, he was my best friend before then, and so it's like having a sleepover with your best friend every night. Every day. You hang out with your person. It's awesome.
Well, that's good. That's good. And you're also a dog mom, correct?
Yes, I am.
I've seen Benny is his name, right?
Yeah, you want to meet him?
Oh, is he here?
He's here.
Oh yeah.
Benny, come here. Come. He was snoozing. Hold on.
All right. So for everyone that who's listening on the podcast, they can't see this. So what kind of dog is he?
He is an English cream. He's a golden retriever. Say hi, Benny. Say hi.
I think he might be bigger than you, Marybeth.
He is huge. He is probably, I would say 80 pounds, and he thinks he's a lap dog. So I don't know where he got that idea, but
That's great. That's great. Also, as we talked about before, with the coronavirus and COVID-19 and everything pushing the Olympics out, one would assume that the trials will now be pushed out, but eventually they will be happening and they'll be in Eugene. And so I've talked to all the former Oregon track and field athletes about what it'll be like returning to Hayward Field and a different Hayward Field, new Hayward Field. But for you, it's different. What will it be like for you to return to Eugene?
I have thought about this so many times. It's going to be hard. It was a very traumatic place for me. Yeah, I have like just played it over in my mind. Like, all right, I've been telling myself like you're gonna be okay, but I am, and I think that it's gonna be awesome because it's a brand new track. It's remodeled, and I feel like I can walk into Eugene and be like, hey, it's the new me. I'm back and I'm better, just like the new track is, and so it's gonna be all right. I'll be good.
And then lastly, just for anyone who's listening or watching this who's gone through or is going through the type of situation that you went through, what advice would you give them?
First and foremost, be honest with yourself. Don't don't run away from your gut. Don't run away from what you know is not right. and run. Get out. Go find your family, your people, somebody who will hold you up. You deserve more. You will get through it, and just be honest. Look at yourself in the mirror and just be honest with yourself.
Awesome. Well, Marybeth, thank you so much for coming on. It takes a very strong person to go through what you went through and come out the other side. It takes an even stronger person to then talk about it and share with everyone. So you said you were talking about how you've gotten out of this and how you feel your self-worth. And I just want to say personally that warms my heart to hear, because no one deserves to go through anything like that, and never believe that that was your fault, because it obviously and truly was not. So thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it too.
And thank you for everyone for watching and listening all season. I appreciate it. And make sure you follow the Beyond the Uniform Instagram. If you have not yet, it's beyond_the uniform, to stay up to date with everything season 2, which will be coming right around the corner. So thank you, and I'll see you next time on Beyond the Uniform.
This has been Beyond the Uniform with TJ Brassil, where every athlete has a story. You just have to listen. Keep an eye out for season 2 episodes coming soon.